Okay. Good evening. Today's lesson is on perek 3, part 2. This shiur is Le'ilui Nishmat Moshe Tzvi ben Eliz. Okay, to recap last lesson, last lesson we learned about the true good, which means being close to Hashem, and of the evaluation of our deeds. This shiur is about under the rule of the Yetzer Hara. In this perek, the Ramchal says that when people are under the rule of the Yetzer Hara, they are like in a prison in the dark, and they're not capable of knowing which path to take. But those who are not under the rule of the Yetzer Hara, they can see the absolute truth. Therefore, they can advise others regarding it. We know that Abraham Avinu, Yitzchak Avinu, they had fought so much against the Yetzer Hara that he actually gave up. He gave up on them. Can you imagine? It's just incredible, but that's really what happened. That actually the Yetzer Hara gave up on Abraham and on Yitzchak. The Ramchal explains, he explained this, being under the rule of the Yetzer Hara, as he explained this through an example of a garden maze. So there is a garden, and in this garden there are trees and bushes that are planted, and they're arranged with as many walls. The walls are made of the trees and the hedges and the bushes, and there are lots of paths in between, and they are confusing, this path, and interconnected. All of them look alike. The goal in such a maze is to reach the pavilion in their center. In truth, these paths are similar but not the same. Some are the correct path, and truly lead to the pavilion, while others, they mislead a person and take him farther away from the pavilion. The one walking among the path really can see or know at all whether he's in the correct path or a false one, because they all appear the same and with no apparent difference. He can't know the correct path unless he's actually familiar, has gone through this place already before, and so he recognizes certain areas, and then he's able to reach the pavilion. However, there is a way to find the right path to the pavilion, and how? That if a person is already in the pavilion and standing outside on the stairs, and from his vantage point, he can see all the path spread out right there in front of him, and he can actually see the correct path and the false ones. What he can do to help the others is to call out and direct them to which path will actually lead them to the pavilion. So if one of these people who are out in the maze, if someone wants to trust this fellow, so he will listen to the directions and make the right turn, left turn, right, go straight, and whatever it is it takes to get to the pavilion. But what if someone decides, no, I cannot trust him, I'm going to try and find my way on my own. And obviously, he doesn't. Or it takes him a very, very long time until he actually finds it. So it is with the same with the Yetzer Hara. Yetzer Hara does the same thing. He doesn't want us to get to the pavilion. He doesn't want us to get to our goal. So he's going to try and find all kind of tactics, all kind of excuses. And he's going to plan it real well, so that he is going to be the one ruling over us. The Ramchal says one should think about his path, if it's the correct one, and think about his deeds. As Shlomo HaMelech said in Mishlei, Pales ma'agal raglecha, v'chol derachecha yikonu. Weigh the course, the path of your foot, and all your ways will be proper. Ramchal's advice is that after proper thinking has taken place, it will be easy to correct one's way. The challenge, there's a big challenge, and the challenge is to commit yourself successfully and actually think and take time to think about your deeds. Then, as it says in Mesilat Yesharim, that we read on Tisha B'Av, Nachpesa derachenu v'nachkora v'nashuva ad Hashem. Let us search and examine our ways and return to Hashem. This is the end of perek 3. And to finish off perek 3, I would like to tell you a story that has to do with teshuvah, that has to do with mending our ways, has to do with not wanting to be under the rule of the Yetzer Hara. So the story goes like this. The story is about the time, this story happened at the time of the Baal Shem Tov. Actually, it involved the Baal Shem Tov. This was about a week before Pesach. And at the time in Ukraine, in Poland, and all those places, Pesach and Russia, Pesach was always a very, very hard time, because they used to accuse Jews of killing Christian children, drain their blood, and use that for baking matzah. So Pesach was a very, very hard time always for the Jews. So the Baal Shem Tov decided to travel to a certain village with his helper, with his shamash, and told his shamash to tell the driver to get the wagon ready. We are traveling. He had a regular driver. So they traveled for a few hours until they came to the place that he wanted to come to. There was actually a lot of excitement in that place. Why? Because a famous bishop was going to come and give a speech. The mayor of the city had prepared in the town square an area where there was a stage, there were barriers, there was a red carpet, everything was ready for this bishop. He was supposed to arrive within the next 2 hours, but on the streets already the peasants and all the people were just so excited that they were already started to stand around the barriers and talking and just waiting for this bishop to come. But not one single Jew was seen around. Not one. The Baal Shem Tov got to the place and he saw what was going on, and he knew which house to go to. There was a Jew who lived not far from the town center, and he went to him. He knocked on the door. The curtains had been drawn, couldn't see inside the house, but the Baal Shem Tov knocked on the door with his shamash, and the owner of the house barely opened the the door, quickly took them in, and you could see that he was scared and he nervous, and he couldn't understand. Rabbi, you came now? It's so dangerous, Rabbi. He says, don't worry, everything will be fine, don't worry. The Baal Shem Tov took a chair and he sat by the window, and every now and then he would have a peek, look outside, and he told his Shamash, be ready, when I tell you to go out, you're going to go out. Shamash was nervous. The owner of the house was nervous. It's so dangerous. Don't worry, everything will be fine. Finally, they could hear a wagon coming, and the wagon stopped right by the red carpet. The bishop was coming out of the wagon, and at that moment, the Baal Shem Tov said to his Shamash, go to the bishop and tell him I want to speak to him. The owner of the house was so scared. Please, what's going to happen to us? Who knows what's going to happen to us after the speech? Please, it's so dangerous. Don't worry, everything's going to be fine. And he told his Shamash, go. Shamash went. He was able to reach the bishop, and he told him, the Baal Shem Tov is here, he's in this house, and he wants to speak to you. The bishop said no. The Shamash came back. He doesn't want to come. Baal Shem Tov tells him, go back and tell him this is his last chance. So Shamash did not understand. What is this? What does this mean? This is his last chance. But he followed the orders of the Baal Shem Tov. So he went back again to the bishop. The bishop had not yet started his speech. And he said to him, the Baal Shem Tov said that this is your last chance. You must come. Bishop thought for a few seconds, and he decided to follow the Shamash. He was taken into the house. The Baal Shem Tov and the bishop went into a room, and they spoke for quite a while. No one was with them in the room. No one from outside of the room could hear the conversation. But after a while, the bishop left. The bishop left the house, did not go on the stage. Instead, he got into his wagon and he left. And the Baal Shem Tov said, now we can leave and go back home. And Baal Shem Tov also went back home. Baal Shem Tov never said anything about what happened between him and the bishop. Who is this bishop? Nothing at all. Years passed, and the Baal Shem Tov is very sick. He knows he's going to pass away. The Shamash knows that the Baal Shem Tov is going to pass away. Trembling and crying, the Shamash says, please, Rabbi, what am I going to do? I served you all these years very faithfully, but what's going to happen to me after you pass on? What's going to be? And so the Baal Shem Tov says, don't worry. Just all you have to do is travel, and wherever you go, tell a story. Tell a story of things that you have seen here. Tell a story of the miracles that happened here, and you'll get paid. Okay? Sometimes later, the Baal Shem Tov passes away, and the Shamash decides, okay, I'm going to follow the advice of the Baal Shem Tov. And he said he starts traveling, and wherever he goes, he tells people, and the Shamash of the Baal Shem Tov, I was the Shamash of the Baal Shem Tov, and if you would like to hear a story, and people said, yes, of course, Baal Shem Tov was so famous. And yes, people listened, people gave him money, and he traveled from place to place to place to place, until he came to a place And he had just finished telling a story. One of the men who had been listening said to him, you know, there's a very rich banker in Italy. I can give you his address, I can give you his name, I can give you all you need to know. Go to him because he always wants to listen to stories of about the Baal Shem Tov. The Shamash was very grateful. He took all the information and he traveled. Took a couple of days, maybe even longer, to reach Italy and to reach the house of the banker. Wow, when he came in and stood in front of that house, wow, what a house, the size of the house, the way it was built, the front garden, everything showed there was wealth in this place. And he knocks on the door, servant opens up, takes him in, and a few minutes later the banker comes. And he says, yes, Shalom Aleichem, who are you? Refreshment is being brought. And, makes small talks. Where do you come from and this and that, until he tells him, well, I was the Shamash of the Baal Shem Tov. Really? The banker is so excited. Really? You were the Shamash of the Baal Shem Tov? Wow. Tell me a story. He says, sure. And the Shamash sits back and he's ready to tell a story. But just suddenly, his mind goes blank. Completely blank. Nothing. Couldn't remember a single story. Nothing at all. And he's just embarrassed. And he says, I don't know what happened. But I can't seem to remember a story. But you know what? I don't know. I says, don't worry. You know what? Let's eat supper. Maybe after supper you will remember. And so they sit down. Supper is served. Nothing. He says, don't worry. It's okay. Anyway, today is Thursday. Stay with me over Shabbat. Maybe Friday. Tomorrow you can tell me a story. Or Friday night or Shabbat morning. It's okay. Relax. Don't worry. He's given a room. He's comfortable. He lacks nothing. Friday morning, again, the banker asks him, no, do you remember anything? No, I don't remember. Friday night, nothing. And there are lots of people by the Shabbat table. There are about 50 people around the table. And the banker says, don't worry, it's okay. Maybe after the fish, nothing. They sing Zemiro, they speak, they say Divrei Torah, nothing. Okay, maybe after the soup, maybe after the meat and vegetables, maybe after dessert, nothing. Okay, don't worry, it's okay, don't worry, tomorrow. But then Shamash is thinking to himself, this banker is going to think I'm a liar, I'm a thief. What's he going to think? Don't seem to remember anything. But now already he felt terrible. Went to bed. Next day after Tefillah again, they say it again, they sing Zemiro, Divrei Torah, and every time, before the Cholet, after the Cholet, nothing doing. Says, okay, go and rest. Maybe when you wake up from your rest, he rests. Shamash goes to rest. Nothing. He wakes up, nothing. Seudah Shlishit, nothing. His mind is a blank. He says, I don't know. Something like this never happened to me. I don't know. So, after Havdalah, they were sitting down, and then suddenly, the Shamash says, oh, I remember a story. Now it came back to me. I remember a story. Sure, so tell me. And what story does he tell the banker? He tells a story about this bishop who came to the village before Pesach. Baal Shem Tov spoke to him. He says, I don't know what the conversation was about, but this is the story. And then suddenly the banker starts dancing and singing, and he's hugging him and kissing him and dancing with him and crying and smiling and singing. The Shamash says, oh, what's going on here? What is this? He doesn't understand this reaction to the story. After a while, when the banker finally was able to calm down, the banker says, now I'm going to tell you my story. He says, you see, I used to learn in the yeshiva of the Baal Shem Tov. And every day I had to travel to get to the yeshiva. And I was a good student, a good talmid. I had a very sharp mind. And every day I used to travel. It would take me about a half hour, 45 minutes to get there. But every day there was a priest. And the priest was always, at the same time he would see me traveling, he was also traveling. And he started to talk to me. So at the beginning there were just short conversations. But as time went by, we became friendly. And we talked more and talked more and talked more. Our conversation actually took the whole trip. But every day that's how it went. And after a while, the priest told me, come to me, come to the church. I'm going to show you some things. And he went. And again, and again, and again. No one knew about these trips that he was paying to the priest. And then one day the priest said to him, you know, you have such a sharp mind. If you come to the church, we will train you. You have such a sharp mind. You'll become so rich. And every day, that's how the conversation was going. Until he said one day, I could not anymore. The temptations were so big. The tactics of the Yetzer Hara, they were too strong for me. I didn't fight it. So instead of fighting it, I went along. And I went to the priest. They taught me. And very quickly I became a bishop. It didn't take long. And I became very, very, very wealthy. Over the years, the Baal Shem Tov tried to speak to me, for me to do teshuvah, to stop doing what I was doing, but I refused. Until that last time, when he came, and he told me this was the last time, the last chance. And he spoke to me for a long time. But I said, so if I do teshuvah and I leave the church, how am I going to know if that Hashem actually forgave what I've done? What I've done is horrible. It's terrible. And he says, the day that someone will come and they will tell you your own story, that will be the day that Hashem have forgiven you. And he said, all these years I've been doing teshuvah every day, crying tears, real tears, for Hashem to forgive me. And many people came and told me all kinds of stories about the Baal Shem Tov. When you came into my house, I recognized you. You did not recognize me. And when you forgot, your mind became a blank. It had nothing to do with you. I knew it. It had to do with me. It means I still had to do some more teshuvah. Since you came, I have not slept. I spent my nights and days doing teshuvah and crying and begging Hashem to forgive me. Now that you told me my own story, now I know Hashem has forgiven me. Obviously, this banker paid handsomely to the shamash. But the reason that I chose this story was just to show us the tactics of the Yetzer Hara. How the Yetzer Hara can take someone who is learning in yeshiva, someone who's day in, day out would be learning, spending his time learning, and turn him around and made him a bishop. But the good lesson that we have here is how the bishop was able to actually, at the end, rule over his Yetzer Hara. And at the end, he was able to actually turn his life around, fulfill his goal, and be his own master instead of being under the influence of the Yetzer Hara. And so, again, one more time, may Hashem bless us all with beracha, hatzlacha, briut, shalom, panasa tova, shidduchim, zugiyut, and may He listen to our prayers letova. And Shabbat Shalom until B'ezrat Hashem Sunday.